Hey everybody, I'm David Henzie Skogen with Youngblood Brass Band. I play snare drum in the group. I also do all the studio engineering and production and such, and write some of the music. One thing that I wanted to talk about really quick today, or as our kind of lesson teaser intro, or whatever this is that it's like a really simple technique thing which we'll look at in the context of one of the more standard New Orleans grooves for brass band music, and how it applies maybe to lots of other groove things as well, or just how you play. This is not the only way to play. It's not the only way to play the groove. It's not the only way to groove. It's just one of the ways I think about it, one of the ways I tend to teach it. But some of the questions we get asked a lot are questions like, what kind of sticks do you use? What kind of drum head is that? What kind of drum is that? All those questions I feel like maybe are better off not asking, right? Because your job as a musician is just like take the gear that's available to you, make it sound good, make it sound like you. I mean, I've seen people play amazing gigs on cardboard boxes. I've seen people play terrible gigs with really great gear, and maybe we do some of both. So anyway, with that being said, I should probably tell you that we play Mapex drums. We play Big Firth drumsticks. Anyway, getting to the real stuff. So there is a really standard New Orleans brass band groove that involves having the snares off. And your roll as the snare drum is a lot like your roll as if you were playing conga drums otherwise. It's basically a pattern that in Cuban music would be called tumbao, where like every beat two, we're gonna play a rim click, one of these like front style rim clicks. Every beat four, we're gonna play two tom notes on 4 and. So essentially the root of the groove is going 2, 3, 4, 1. And kind of doing that over and over. But that is obviously, in general, not the way you see the groove played. There's lots of stuff kind of underneath it. There's all these little grace notes. There's and many different ways to play it. So I'll just give you an example of the type of way I tend to play it. And if you want to see this in action, there's a Youngblood Brass Band video on YouTube of us at the Rock and Solex Festival. If you look up Rock and Solex Youngblood, you'll find it. It's like ROCK space N space SOLEX. And this is the type of groove we use in a song in that video that's a cover of a Rebirth Brass Band song called Why You Worry About Me. And in that video, the song appears at 32 minutes and 30 seconds. So this is basically that groove. 1, 2, So all the stuff that's going in there that's underneath all of the just basic 1, 2, 2. Right? For one thing, I'm kind of keeping my hands going the whole time. I'm kind of doing. So essentially the pattern with the hands becomes straight eighths all the time, right hand lead. Like. That's obviously also not how I play it. Sometimes I'm putting little dead strokes on these lower notes. Sometimes I'm doing that. I'm like rolling, open diddles or like an open roll into the notes. Sometimes I'm playing a triplet-based thing into those notes, like. Sometimes I'm playing that triplet as the 2 open notes. All these different things kind of constitute the variations you can play on it. And not to mention like whether or not I'm playing a shot sometimes as opposed to, or maybe I'm playing a really open flam shot. Maybe I'm roughing into a shot. Lots of stuff. Those are all the types of things you can do, but the biggest thing about it, and I think this is true for a lot of group music, is whether or not you can go from a really loud note, a really high velocity note, to a really soft note in a relaxed manner. And it seems like one of the simplest things to develop as a drummer, but I think it's something that a lot of us tend to ignore or do in a way that doesn't make it easy to play well. So really all we're talking about is going loud note, soft note, over and over. And how your hand is set up to do that. The problem is a lot of times we think of those things in terms of strength or tension. We think like, work really hard for this, squeeze the stick to hold it down. Those things tend to make problems in your playing and in how you feel the time and how you feel the groove. If I use a bunch of tension in my hand, it's like I'm no longer just kind of like flicking and lifting and throwing the stick. As soon as I tense up the hand, the tendons between the hand and forearm, the wrist tendons get tight, and now like to throw the stick, I'm actually throwing all of this weight, like all of this upper arm weight. I'm throwing something that weighs maybe like 10 pounds instead of throwing a stick that weighs a few ounces. And you can get all that velocity from just how efficiently you use the finger muscles. If the stick is being held relaxed in the hand, if I'm pushing down with the thumb and first finger and pulling back with the back fingers, and using all those really little muscles to get me velocity on something that is really pretty light, and then letting gravity and the weight of the hand do the work to make it a nice note. What I want to do is throw that loud note down and then just leave the hand where it is. I don't need to squeeze to hold the stick down. I can throw it down, right? And then just the impact from that note can be absorbed up through my arm in a really relaxed way. I don't need to hold on to the stick any tighter to do it. That's something that takes some serious development. It's something I work on with my students a lot. And that as professionals or whatever, it's like you're kind of constantly working on being able to do these max dynamic things without tensing up or changing the way you feel the groove. So in the context of this groove, we'd be going grace note or a soft note here, trying to make that rim click really pop. Coming back for a loud note there. I forgot a soft note in the middle. Soft note, loud note, soft note, loud notes, right? So really I'm going soft, loud, over and over. Whatever you want to do. Anyway, it's a groove that I think doesn't get talked about a lot. And it's the kind of thing where like there's not a right way to play it. You might do this alternating thing the way I am. A lot of people like ride with one hand and play the groove with the other hand, like, right? Or play the click with the other hand and start the tom notes elsewhere. And this is true for a lot of New Orleans grooves where it's like there's not hard and fast rules for how you need to play it. There's not like this sticking in this particular accent pattern. There's more like rules for how it needs to feel while you play it. And in future lessons or videos or whatever, we can get a lot into what are all those different grooves and where do they make sense and how do you make it feel like it's yours or how do you make it feel good. And a lot of it has to do with who you're playing with too. Like the communication between the bass drum and snare drum is pretty key. You don't want to just sit there and like play all your fills all the time. There's space that's created for you in the song. There's space that like the tuba player and the bass drummer create for you. And there's a lot of times where like you want to create space for something else. Like for instance, I've been playing with Tom and Youngblood forever. He kind of can sense and feel where like if I'm going to do something like this, leave like that beat 4 open, or maybe even more beats open. Maybe I'm gonna go. And then come back in, right? He's gonna know, and I did it with my mouth accidentally, he's gonna know that it's gonna be like boom, like he's gonna know that I'm creating that space for him. But part of your job is to like fill the space where it's exciting, give other people space to let them say something too. But yeah, I mean, playing a groove with 2 people or 3 people or whatever on drums is just way different than like playing drum set and making the groove yourself. You're not just trying to lock in with the bass player, you're trying to figure out all the subtleties of these 2 different drummers and what your tendencies are. and true listening, or like true making something groove, is just as much about how capable you are of making that groove happen, and how capable or willing you are to let that other person kind of dictate how that groove should feel, or at least half of how it should feel, right? You have to kind of come to this agreement and not just be like, I'm where the groove is. And, nobody likes that. Anyway, yeah, so that's a standard, pretty standard like brass band type feel that's used a lot. And there's a bunch of them, and again, it's not like there's only one way to do it, but this is one way to start doing it. And the biggest thing you can do is like sit in this groove with a recording or with another drummer or whatever. Sit it in as long as you can and as simple as you can. One thing that's really key is that just because the music is like quote unquote coming from a jazz place, it's not completely swung all the time. You're not going to play. It starts to get really like, and that's not the thing. A really good example of this, and this is true for like horn, how you play the horn notes and all that stuff too. A good example of this is like in a Youngblood tune like Brooklyn. A lot of people know that. That part of the song where everybody goes 2, 3, 4. Like if we were to swing that phrase completely in the way that we're taught, swing, like what swing means, all triplet interpretation, it would sound like 2, 3, 4. Which is not the way we want it to feel. In general, you want to straighten out, you want to lengthen and straighten out a lot of those things that you would naturally consider swung. And because, we want it to sound like there's not a lot of swing to it. But it swings better when there's not a lot of swing to it. So anyway, same thing that's happening here. Like my hands are kind of naturally swinging a little bit. Like there's this kind of like 30-40% swing going on when I'm like. Right there, I played some triplets, right? That's swung, right? But then I played. Right? Not swung at all. And that's a big thing too. Like you can affect how the groove feels depending on how much you want to swing something. Like maybe it totally changes the groove and makes it really pop out if I go like 100% straight for a fill. If I'm like. Or. Like that's a totally different feel than if I say. Both are valid. Maybe both are used at certain points. You do not want to get in the mindset of like, I must swing everything as chaka 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 chaka. Or I guarantee you it's not going to be funky. Everything really funky is somewhere in between. And maybe I take a little moment to be like, here's me barreling through totally straight. Here's me doing like super swung just for a second. All these things, I talk about all of them. But yeah, anyway, that's one groove. It's one way to look at it. And check out that Rock and Soul X video at 32 minutes and 30 seconds if you want to see an example of us playing it live in a way that's incredibly aggressive for that tune. But yeah, and hopefully we can get into more other stuff. Obviously, we could also turn the snares on. Yeah, so anyway, YoungbloodBrassBand.com, YoungbloodBrass on Twitter, YoungbloodBrassBand on SoundCloud, Facebook.com/YoungbloodBrassBand, all that stuff. And yeah, we can talk more about it in the future. Have a wonderful day, guys.